great speakers who are doing amazing work. So next I want to bring Tatiana Grant Saunders to the front. She's a good friend of mine. I met her, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago at, I was speaking at the Raw School of Business at the Black MBA program. I think she was...
Oh, I was listening then.
Yes, yes. And so she is a dear friend, a serial entrepreneur. She has worked with a lot of athletes that you actually know. So I just want her just to share a little bit, but we also wanted to also show that like it's not just dudes like doing stuff. Lots of times that when you see a lot of conferences and platforms, you only see guys up there because the people who curate and put the stuff together, all they know is who they are. And we want to be able to show you that there's amazing people who are doing great work. And so I want to give her a few minutes to be able to share.
Good morning, everybody. So what schools are here? I heard East English Village. Who else is here? Where are the schools? West Bloomfield. Who else? Belleville? Did you say Belleville? What do you say? Okay, so we got West Bloomfield, East English Village. That's it? Western? Okay. So nice, kind of diverse group. I am originally from Southwest, so Western, I'm like 48217 Schaefer 4th Street area. That's where I grew up. But my parents, you know, the little great migration, you go from one city to the next. So I went from Southwest to Melvindale to Farmington Hills. I went to Mercy in North Farmington for high school. I went to Eastern Michigan University for undergrad and Michigan State for grad school. And I have on these are probably like 2-inch heels. So I'm very short. But my career started about 18 years ago, kind of around this time when Super Bowl was gonna be in Detroit. That was my first job out of college. So I started off as an intern. When I was in high school, your age, I saw on the news the same way you guys probably saw a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that the NFL draft was coming to Detroit, was the same thing. I was in high school. I saw the Super Bowl was coming to Detroit when I was in high school. And I was like, yo, I wanna work there. So I did the math, I figured it out, and I knew I would be in college when Super Bowl was in Detroit. But at the time, I wanted to do sports medicine. So I'm like, okay, I'm in high school, I'm gonna go to school. Didn't know I was gonna go to Eastern or anything like that, but ended up going to Eastern. And my first semester realized sports and math, or not math, math and science were not gonna be my thing. But marketing, communications, speech classes, all of that, I could do in my sleep and get straight A's. So I took an intro to PR class and fell in love with it. Do you guys know what PR people are? You know who PR people are?
People who work with the media.
Yes. So PR people are kind of the liaisons. Your schools probably don't have them, but once you go to college, there will be a media relations department. Those are the people that you see that are with the camera crews. What you don't see is before the camera crews get there, they're the ones talking to them on the phone, they're emailing, they're texting them to say, hey, we have a press conference on this day or time. These are the same people that if you're doing something great, they're going to pitch you to the media and try to get the press to talk about how great of an athlete you are, how smart and intelligent you are, and hopefully at some point in time in your life, talk about all the business and other things you have going on other than being an athlete. Hopefully, they don't have to do crisis management, but in the event you mess up some shit, they will keep you off the news, in theory. That was part of my job at one point in time, was making sure that athletes' mistakes didn't make the news. So, ended up working at Super Bowl. It was an amazing, amazing experience. And I was an intern, but I worked my ass off, like legitimately. I was the smallest little one there. I was the first one in the office. I was the last one out of the office. So much so that I have kind of co-workers now. They're a lot older than me, but now because of what I've accomplished, we're definitely on the same level when it's all said and done. And they talk about the work ethic that they saw in me as an intern, and that's what made me stand out. So I highly encourage you, whether it's you on the field, on the court, your academics, make sure that you stand out. All those little things make a big, big difference. Those are the athletes when you talk to really, really wealthy people and they are looking to give and work with someone about job opportunities, business opportunities, they're looking at those athletes that stood out, that weren't just sitting in the corner, on the phone, on Instagram. They're looking at those that they saw something different in, that made them different than anybody else in the jersey. So fast forward, Super Bowl's over, and I'm very aggressive. So I knew February 5th, 2006 was when Super Bowl was coming. The way Super Bowl is, when it comes, when it ends, it ends. So I started sending out my resume back like in December, saying, hey, I'm gonna be graduating, I have this internship. When I'm done, I would love to work for your organization. So I was able to get a job. I didn't even think about this. Is this the Alfred Topman building?
Yeah.
My first job after Super Bowl was working for Alfred Topman, the man that this building is named after. I worked in his world headquarters in Bloomfield Hills, and I managed his PR and his community giving. So Mr. Topman, you guys should probably Google who he is, yep?
I was going to say, they don't know who the Alfred are.
Right, so got it. So who here has been to Fairlane Mall? Who here has been to Northland Mall? The mall at Partridge Creek? 12 Oaks Mall? Alfred Topman was the first person in America to build a shopping mall. He's a very rich Jewish man who's now deceased. The first mall in America was Northland, and then he expanded, he got Fairlane, he became extremely wealthy off of some interesting urban sprawl, meaning taking businesses out of Detroit and moving them in the suburbs, and that's where money and things of that sort went, but we're not gonna go down that path. But ultimately, you can imagine you got buildings named after you. He made a lot of money when it's all said and done. Here, Ann Arbor, New York, he's made a lot of money. And because I worked for his organization, I had a really, really great job. So here I was I was like 22, working in their world headquarters. This place was so cushy. They literally, so when you're in college, even now when you talk to your teachers, they say, oh, you know, you can get this internship, you're gonna make this much money, blah, 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 blah. They sent me my offer letter. I burst into tears when I got it, because it was so much more than anybody told me I could make coming out of college. And that was just a salary. That wasn't like stocks and other things. So as soon as I sent it to my mom, she was like, you don't even need to negotiate. That's an amazing offer. I still negotiated. And I asked her, hey, I would love to take this job, but my dream job has been to work at Super Bowl, and I'm still an intern there. They held my position from December until February. They held that position for me until Super Bowl was over. Literally the week after, I was in Bloomfield Hills. I was no longer working in Ford Field. But if people, again, they see something in you, they know that you're good, people will make exceptions. I'm sure you guys have those stories in your lives where you showed up for somebody and they showed up for you. Or you showed up for somebody else and that karma went around in a very good way and something even better came into fruition for you. So I'm working out of there, and amazing job. I'm working with all these people. They give you lunch every day. That was one of the employee perks. They pay for your lunch, and the administrative assistants go downstairs. They bring you lunch every day at your desk. It was crazy. And basically, it started getting really boring because it was this big company. I was the youngest person in that whole company. I was the only black person in the world headquarters at the time. Everybody else kind of worked in the malls, but in the actual headquarters, there was no black people. And I was the youngest person by probably 6 or 7 years. So I was very eager, and we had all these companies that we were paying to do the jobs of the people who worked in the office, and it made no sense to me. So I would go to my boss, I said, hey, you guys remember Pangborn Designs? Pangborn is this big agency that we were spending a ton of money on to do our advertising. And the stuff was like very basic. So, and in college, I took an Adobe Photoshop class. So I went to my boss and I said, hey, I know we paying Pangborn all this money, but I took a class in college. Can I start trying to do the ads? So they said, I'll give you one better. So they sent me to a class to get me Adobe Photoshop certified. And fortunately for me, I then started getting to do the advertising for Taubman, and Mr. Pangborn lost his contract. But it was one of those, you have to show value when you're in an organization. Of course, you're there to get a check, but you have to give and receive. So an organization that you're working for, a lot of people don't know, when you're there, they're looking to get way more out of you than what your salary is. It's normally 1.5 times. So if your salary is $50,000, they're looking to get at least $120,000, $130,000 worth of work out of you. That's the reason why you hear so many people talking about entrepreneurship, because an organization is looking, the expectation as soon as you walk in that door is I'm making more money off of that person than they're making on a salary. Plain and simple. Now there's benefits in there, so your $50,000 salary really isn't $50,000. They're paying for your healthcare and stuff, but realistically, they're looking to get more out of you than you're looking to put in. So basically, amazing job, but it got really boring because anything coming off a Super Bowl was gonna be really boring, especially in this stuffy kind of place. So there was somebody who came to my class when I was in college and was talking just like I am talking to you guys. At the time, he was the director of media relations for the Detroit Pistons. I forgot this part of the story. So met him, got his business card, emailed him a couple times when I was looking for that job. When I said, I was emailing people saying, hey, I'm gonna graduate, I'm looking for a job. He was one of the people I emailed. He said at the time he didn't have a job for me. So of course, now I've been working at Taubman. I'm in Bloomfield Hills, that boring job I was telling you about, and I'm in Miami getting one of the malls ready for Black Friday. And I'm lost on the turnpike, and a random number called my cell phone, so I answered it. And he said, it's Dave Weemy. I'm like, Dave, I'm lost, like what's going on? And he said, hey, I think I have your dream job. I know I didn't have a job when you emailed me some months ago, but a position just came available. So I was like, okay. Like I said, I'm getting the mall ready for Black Friday. So the only day he told me he could do was a day that I had to babysit for. So in high school, I was like master babysitter. So for those of you in West Bloomfield, Franklin Athletic Club. I worked at Franklin Athletic Club all high school. I started off doing birthday parties there. Then I got promoted in college to be the weekend manager. And here I was, a college graduate, working at Taubman, and the family that I used to babysit for was still calling me to babysit their kid. So he was like, the only day you can babysit, the only day that I have available for you to interview is this day. Of course, it's the day I got to babysit. I was like, I'm sorry. There's this family, the son's autistic, I still babysit for them. He said, bring the kids. So my interview for the Detroit Pistons was, it's now Joe's Market up on Woodward. It was Barnes & Noble at the time. And I had 2 little kids that I babysit for, sitting there, and I bribed them with ice cream. And he said, do you know why you're here? And I said, yeah, because you have a job. He said, no, because when I looked on your resume, I saw that you interned at John Bailey and Associates. And I emailed my friend there. I said, hey, I'm thinking about bringing this girl in for an interview. What do you think? He said, hire her. And he said, I asked, can you elaborate? And he said, no, hire her. Again, that was an internship, not the Super Bowl, it was a different one. That was for Auto Show. And I busted my butt on that one. I was coming from Eastern. I had to be at Cobo at like 6 o'clock in the morning. This is January. It was horrible. I was crying, calling my mama. It was bad. But because of the way I showed up on that internship, that's how I got my job working at the Detroit Pistons. I had an amazing job there. At the time, Mr. Davison was a team owner. He had the Pistons, the Detroit Shock, the Tampa Bay Lightning. We had Meadowbrook. We had all these different venues, and I was doing PR and events. Amazing dream job. The athletes used to like joke about them all being this big and them having to listen to my little self. So after that, I got really burnt out. I took a pay cut. I left Taubman, that really good job. I took a pay cut to go work for the Detroit Pistons, because that's the other thing. If you plan on working in sports, they are not, until you get to a certain level, they are not gonna pay you what other organizations and industries are gonna pay. Because it's sexy, it's fun, you're gonna build a resume, they're not gonna pay you what your worth probably is. But you can build a great portfolio, a great network, and you can use that to your advantage in the future. So basically, I left there, I started my own business, and I have been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years. My first clients were all professional athletes, and I was doing PR and event planning, things of that sort. I started managing the foundations of athletes. Then from there, I went to school part-time. I got my master's from Michigan State in public relations. And simultaneous to that, I started doing work for the now mayor of Detroit. I started as Mayor Duggan's event planner. From there, went into like heavy kind of corporate work. So my company right now, McDonald's of Michigan, is one of our clients. The Detroit Promise, so the scholarship for Detroit residents, my company does all the marketing for them. And I also own an Amazon logistics business. So most people don't know it's not actually Amazon that comes to your house. It's a separate company that Amazon has a contract with. So out of Sterling Heights, I have about 50 Amazon trucks and over 100 drivers that deliver to Macomb County every single day. They're doing deliveries right now. So I say all that to say that make sure whatever's that special something in you, that you know I can do this in my sleep. If you don't know what it is, try a whole bunch of different things until you figure out what that is. But once you figure that thing out, be the best at that you possibly can be. And you should do well. And I think my time is up.
Yeah, I want to add on to that though. Lots of times, if we look in the media, there's so many overtold stories. But we don't hear the stories of Tatiana, right? Because we see the Dan Gilberts of the world who are doing like great stuff. But there are people in our own village, in our own communities, who are doing amazing stuff. Every time I call, I'm like, okay, so what are you working on now? Because she's able to see around the corner. But what I also wanted to do is I wanted you to be able to see somebody that looks like you, that comes from your neighborhood, from your zip code, who's doing dope stuff. Because our history books don't really show the stuff. They show his story instead of history. And so I'm excited about it. So I want to just leave just a couple minutes for questions. The pizza is on the way up. But does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to ask Tatiana any questions?
How did you transition into Amazon?
It's funny you say that. So there's a lot of my story I left out because of time. But I started Detroit's first food delivery service back in 2013. So before Grubhub, Uber Eats, all that good stuff, there was a company called Flash Delivery. We delivered for Starters, Buffalo Wild Wings, Traffic Jam, which is now closed, all these little restaurants down here. My company was the first company to do those deliveries. And then we got the contract with Uber Eats. And then Uber Eats, not Uber Eats, yeah, no, it was Uber Eats, no, DoorDash, no, Grubhub. So most people don't know Grubhub used to not be a delivery company. It was only a website you could go to order food. So they worked with us and we did the deliveries for them. And then when they got big enough, then they became our competitors. So I just started bleeding money, and there was a lady, coincidentally, my company used to do fundraising for the Charles H. Wright Museum. A fundraiser there during COVID moved to Chicago, and she met an owner who owned an Amazon company, and he said that Amazon was looking for an owner, basically to be a McDonald's type of story where they would basically make all these black millionaires. You get into the program and you definitely bringing in a couple $1 million at least. And they were like, hey, can you go through the process? Do you have this much cash? Is your credit score this? And it was simply word of mouth. Somebody who knew I had this food delivery service, and she was like, hey, if she knew how to deliver food, I'm sure she can figure this part out. And I did.
Vans or box trucks or both?
I have standard vans, box trucks, CDVs, and now step vans.
So the other beautiful part about that is that entrepreneurship is a journey. And so in
Yeah.
startup language, we always talk about pivoting, right? So what you start with is not what you end with, right? And so we're all on a journey, like whether we're athletes, whether we're creating content, whether we're entrepreneurs. But the fact that she was on the journey, these things found her because she was prepared and in position, right? And so building relationships becomes important. Y'all have to understand the value of building relationships because that's key. Go ahead.
So you said building relationships. How easy was it for you to start networking with people and like getting yourself out there?
So I am a very extroverted person. You could literally drop me anywhere and I'm gonna start talking to people. So for me, it's very easy to network because it is one of, I feel like, my God-given gifts and talents. So for me, I'm gonna always start a conversation with pretty much just about anybody. But if that's not your thing, you gotta figure out how to do it. That's the reality. Now, the good thing is, if you have mentors, if you have folks like that, they can kind of bring you into the room with you and introduce you to folks to kind of get you a little more comfortable, a little more confident in yourself. But there will be a time where you have to enter into rooms where you know nobody and go introduce yourself or just sit down at the table and just start talking to people and, let them know. I mean, at first, and I mean, I've run across the full gamut of people who are just complete assholes to people who are just like really good, genuine people, but you don't get to know the difference between those people until you talk to them. The other key is once you get their information, follow up with them. Like you got to make sure you follow up with people because oftentimes in some of these environments, you need them more than they need you. So you will have to follow up. And it doesn't have to be like the first email, hey, I see you have this business. I'm looking for this type of job. Like that's not necessarily it. Like when I was emailing Dave, it was because I had established a relationship with him since college. Or if you see somebody and you remember their name, just go up to them and talk to them and say, hey, I heard you speak at this thing. I'm up to this now. But you just kind of got to put yourself out there.
All right. Let's give Miss Tatiana a quick hand.
Thank you, guys.